Hello, welcome back, or welcome for the first time if this is new to you. Today's episode features Liam Taylor. He's a highly experienced guitarist, teacher, music technician, YouTuber, to name just a few of his creative ventures. I basically wanted to grill him about his thoughts on all things music and indie related, primarily learning and teaching guitar, overcoming struggles in skill development, face-to-face teaching versus online or app-based teaching, and the best and worst ways to promote your music if you're an independent artist or band or producer. We actually ended up talking in depth about a fair few different topics, and he's definitely an inspiring creative and musician. He's got lots of projects in the pipeline personally, and he offers quite a lot of amazing advice and tips for anyone that's looking to progress with their playing or looking to build up their fan base a little bit. So let us know in the comments if there's anything you'd like to add to the conversation. And in the meantime, enjoy the chat. For anybody that doesn't know, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of what you do and how long you've been doing it, that kind of thing?
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks so much for having me. I love doing stuff like this. A lot of what I do is actually music journalism type stuff, so I'm quite used to interviewing bands, but I don't often get to be interviewed myself, so this is fun. Broadly speaking, I'm a musician. There's quite a lot of variety to what I do, so first and foremost, I'm a guitarist. That's the thing I'm good at and the thing I really enjoy. I create YouTube videos for a few channels, most of them around music, and I've been doing that for a few years. This last year, in terms of YouTube, has been pretty full on with my own channel, which I upload guitar videos to every week now. I also co-host and write music for a comedy podcast called The Conversation Hat. If anyone wants to check that out, it should be on pretty much any podcast listening platform. I write comedy sketches, which go up on YouTube as well, and I write music for those. Teach a bit of guitar and bass one-on-one, and very occasionally, if I'm lucky, I get to compose for indie films. So that's lots of fingers, lots of pies, I guess. So
I was going to ask what a typical day was like for you, but I guess you're going to deal with different things on different days of the week.
It varies pretty widely. I have my day job, which I'm really lucky to have found a day job that is actually in any way music related. So I spend about 20 hours of my week as a music technician, which can be more like 50-60 hours if there's an event on, which happens a few times throughout the year.
Is that in one particular venue?
That can be all over the place. So we used to do stuff at the Mumford Theatre in Cambridge. We did some stuff in Birmingham a few weeks ago for a Music for Youth festival. We've got the Junction in Cambridge we occasionally work with, and then because the school is a federation, there's 3 different sites we could be at. There's one where most of the art stuff happens, but it does take me all over the city and occasionally across the country as well, which is pretty crazy for a secondary school, but it's good
exciting. Fun. Yeah.
A normal day there will usually involve instrument repair, bits of music editing, assisting students, quite a lot of assisting teachers as well with Sibelius, Pro Tools, Ableton, a little bit of live sound and lighting work as well. Not exactly what I thought I'd be doing with my time, but I mean, having that kind of income is great, and it allows me to do so much more with my freelance time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, pretty lucky to have something.
It keeps your head in the right place, doesn't it, as well?
Oh, completely. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't really do weekends because of how much I've got going on. I don't really do time off.
Oh, I see what you mean. You work. Right.
Yeah. So I'm about 20 hours at the day job, and then I get 3.5 days a week plus school holidays to work on the freelance stuff, most of which is YouTube based. I think I host 2 music channels and 2 non-music channels, so day to day, as you say, there's a bit of variety, but I could be researching topics, writing scripts, recording myself or co-hosts, recording myself playing guitar. I'll usually, the only thing my days have in common is that when I wake up, I'll spend about an hour waiting for coffee to kick in. I
Sounds
think
familiar.
that's a pretty universal thing, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. We all have a lazy hour
so-
in the morning where the world comes into place.
completely. So for that period, I'll find something light to do. So maybe just like a little bit of idle guitar playing. So not really focusing on anything. Maybe write a to-do list for the day. I'm a big fan of lists, checking emails, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't have any daily schedules or rules because of the variety in what I do. The only things that are consistent are that I'll try to get half an hour of solid guitar playing in and try to write one piece of music every day as well.
Oh, okay. That's a good rule.
It's a really cool rule. I can't remember who I stole it from, but it doesn't even have to be a good piece of music. It could just be a few bars of something interesting. Just an idea.
Yeah.
Like
no, that is a
the
really
bare
good
essentials
idea.
of a concept. Could be on a computer, could be a piece of paper with like some chords written down. But yeah, just something to keep you sort of engaged in terms of music writing.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to evening, like I say, I'm really bad at relaxing. So even if I'm trying to, or even if I'm watching TV or gaming or whatever, physically I'll be quite tired, but my brain is wide awake. So I'll always be writing scripts or optimizing videos on a laptop, even if I'm multi-screening, it's called, isn't it? It's one of those things that millennials get yelled
Even if
at
you're
for.
supposedly chilling out, you're still on the ball.
There is no chill, I'm afraid. No
That's
chill.
the best way to be, though. It's how you move forwards, isn't it? Try new things.
I think so.
New projects.
Definitely, yeah.
So when did you start YouTubing? Like, when did you upload your very first video?
My very first video, I think, was a cover of Michael Jackson's Beat It, just the solo section, which I recorded. I studied at this great music college called Access to Music in Norwich, so I used to go every day on a train, hour and a half back and forth to music college, and as part of the coursework I think we got given a week or two to learn a song, and it was like a module in being a session musician. So I was like, cool, yeah, I'll do Beat It. How hard could it be? It's really hard.
Is that on electric?
Super. Sorry?
Was that on electric guitar?
Electric guitar, yeah. Really pretty intricate solo. Didn't help that the coursework was being recorded and marked at, I think it was 9 a.m, having been on the train for an hour and a half, no real chance to warm up. And we just played it so much faster than it should have been.
You tend to do that when you're nervous, though, don't you? I've had that experience.
Completely.
Yeah.
So
how do you go about something like that? Would you look up the tab for it, or would you just sort of learn it by ear and make your own version?
I think I did a combination of things. So I think I listened to it a few times, so I could sort of mentally break it down into the different sections. And then usually with something like that, you'll find that, okay, this section is all about this one kind of technique. This section is all about outlining this chord. So then you break it up into these sub exercises. This is what I do when I teach as well. And then basically just look at tabs online. I don't believe anyone's ever tabbed any song perfectly. There will always be some kind of problem in there, so I try and work out, okay, that section works for this section, but then I'll refer to this other tab to get this other section. So just kind of
mix and match.
Absolutely mix and match, and then working out what I could get away with adapting to suit my own playing style. So for example, I'm really bad at picking fast, like individual notes, but I'm quite good at kind of more legato, left hand reliant style stuff. So I tried to work out if there's anything I could swap techniques for without it just sounding like a different song, basically.
Okay, yeah. So just utilising your own strengths to kind of make it work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that video still on YouTube?
Yeah, I think if you search Liam Taylor Beat It guitar solo, you might be able to find it. I don't know. There's probably thousands of people who've done that same solo.
We'll give it a search anyway. That sounds good.
But if you find my channel, I think Liam Taylor Guitar Tuition on YouTube, it will be. You might have to do a bit of scrolling down to find it, but it'll be on there somewhere for sure.
Okay, cool. So how many videos have you uploaded? Do you know?
That's a really good question. I've probably somewhere near 120 at this point.
Blimey, and that's in how long?
So that first video would have been uploaded in 2009. I think it might have been 2012 or 2013 when I started teaching. But the first videos were kind of... what's the best way to put this? They weren't any good by themselves. Like, I uploaded them to be a resource used in addition to what I was teaching students one-on-one. So It was basically me just literally playing an exercise so they could hear it and see what I'm doing.
Just to accompany the teaching process.
Exactly. So I think it must have been the last, maybe 2014, 15, probably 2015, where I actually tried to start uploading regularly. So hard to get just everything timetabled in a way that allows you to do it regularly, because on YouTube you've got to do it basically weekly, otherwise you're not gonna get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So the same thing as you said about writing a new bit of music every day, isn't it? It's the consistency
completely. Just being really strict with yourself and making yourself do it. So I, as of January this year, have managed to upload one video every week. I think there's one that I've missed because I spent just a little bit too much time on a different project. So
fair enough.
It's been this year, 2017, that's really kind of taken off.
Amazing.
Yeah, weekly is hard, plus all the other channels which get monthly or weekly videos as well.
That's awesome. So no, I knew that you were obviously quite experienced. That's why I asked you on the show, but I didn't realise it went quite so far back, if you know what I mean.
There's quite a lot. But as I say, it's only really been the last couple of years that it's kind of been a focus, and then with my own channel this year in particular.
Oh, amazing. So when you said you were a music technician, I kind of imagined, the sound guy at gigs, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Do you do anything like that, or is it mostly just the schools thing?
So they have performances quite often. So for example, the last week of term we had to put on the musical Godspell in 3 days with 11-year-olds
from scratch.
From scratch.
Sounds
so fun. Yeah, it's hard. Really hard. So we're lucky in that there's 2 technicians and a student who's really great at lighting, so he could focus on lighting. Right. The other tech could focus on doing the live sound. So what I was doing, I guess, was kind of being like a DJ. So there were sound effects and tracks that were triggered at points in the performance. So that was my job. Other times I'll have to do live sound text type things. I'll have to do drama exams where I'm a lighting tech. So it's I'm not quite sure if it's more or less pressured than doing a kind of indie band gigs, but a different kind of pressure certainly, because if you mess up as a technician in an indie gig, then it could sort of like spoil the evening. But if you mess up as a technician in a GCSE exam, I don't think I could ruin someone's GCSE, but I feel like I could. I know that they're not graded on it.
It wouldn't affect their marks, but I think you could throw them off, couldn't you?
Totally, yeah.
Which could affect the performance, I guess.
But we're quite good at teaching them, if this goes wrong, you just got to carry on. And actually, if something goes wrong and you carry on, you can get marked up for that. So
okay.
I don't want to say I'm helping them when I mess up, but...
We took you from a C to a B, don't you know?
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I've seen quite a few of your videos now.
Cool.
Well, considering that you've got over 100, I guess I'm not anywhere near there.
Just scratched the surface.
Yeah. In May, you put out one called Guitarist to the Worst, which is one that caught my attention. So this was about your feelings about guitarists who, for example, put a Fender strap on a non-Fender guitar, or misuse guitar pedals, or wear the capo right up high on the neck of the guitar. Do you actually attend a lot of gigs, or is that, now that you say that you don't have a lot of leisure time, is that not something that you do?
I think I have a load of pet peeves. I think they come from working with indie bands. So years ago, before I was a technician, I worked as an events manager a bit, and I do work with young bands at school quite a lot. So I do see a fair bit. I do more stuff behind the scenes at gigs than I do attend gigs, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm certainly at gigs. I just don't attend them for pleasure very often. A lot of my pet peeves, I think, are rooted in there's something about guitar that seems to attract arrogant people, and I can get away with saying that because I'm a guitarist, and all the things I complain about in that video are things that I have done. The thing with the delay pedal, for example, you get a really cool glitchy sound when you've got the delay, feedback and mix up, but then you start turning the delay time button. It's a really cool sound, but using it seems to become a staple with independent bands, and I used to use it all the time because it's a cool sound, but it's just a bit overused. So that's where that comes from. The guitar strap thing shouldn't bother me nearly as much as it does, but it really bothers me. It's kind of my own problem, but yeah, that's basically if I see someone with a let's say a Gibson guitar, but then the strap is a Fender. Fender make great straps, but you're not playing a Fender, so that bothers me more than it should.
What do you think that is, though? Is that not possibly that someone's just given it to them as a gift, or do you think that people don't understand, that Fender make guitars as well? Or
it could be any number of those things. I think I'm pretty willing to accept that that's my own problem.
Fair
and
enough.
that because I'm quite a tall guy, so actually I used to use Fender straps because it got the guitar in a comfortable position. I played bass in a band a few years back, and I like my bass a little bit lower than I do my guitar. So
so you need a lengthy strap.
Exactly. So I actually ended up buying a Fender amplifier to go with my Fender strap to go with my Dean bass. So that's
so you
how
brought this on yourself, really.
I brought it's my own problem. I accept that. I don't go to nearly as many gigs as I'd like. It's kind of a lame excuse, but there's not that many venues around Cambridge.
I was going to ask about that, actually.
Yeah. So some of the bits of the video is called Guitarists Are the Worst, and here's why, if anyone's interested. Some of those bits were aimed at, I think I saw like a Glastonbury highlight, or it could have been a Download Festival highlight. And the capo thing, I see professional guitarists using a capo really far up the neck, and I just think to myself, you could have learnt a new chord voicing or found another way to play that chord without cutting off half the range of your instrument, probably having a load of tuning problems. And I don't know, it just seems a bit
how far up the neck is too far, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, the thing with the way guitars are tuned means that any further than the 5th fret is redundant, so you can voice any chord within a 5 fret radius. You just can. So if you're using a capo further than the 5th fret, it basically means that you're playing a chord you could play elsewhere, and you could have a greater range of chord because you're basically cutting off 5th frets of your deepest string. Does that kind of make sense?
No,
I've
I
phrased that weirdly.
I do. I know I definitely do wear my capo higher than the 5th fret when I play sometimes. But I think the reason
it's easy. I get it.
I'm not the best guitarist, and so
Sure.
I write a lot of my own songs, and so if I'm trying to work out where my voice is, for me that's the easiest way, and then afterwards I'll work out how to play it without. But
it's an easy adjustment if, say, you're in like a function band and you do karaoke style stuff, which I've seen around a few times. If the singer says, "Oh, my range is a bit higher than this song was recorded," you can just whack a capo on 2 frets up, play the same chords, and not have to think about it.
Yeah,
quick
definitely.
fix.
But I know what you mean. It takes away the brightness of the guitar sound.
Totally. Especially if a band doesn't sort out the intonation on their instrument as well, and it just sounds bad. It's really a problem with kind of the better known bands who play the big festivals. I just feel a bit like you of all people should know how to use your instrument properly.
At that level in your career, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
You would imagine. But the problem is you're going to get loads of hate on my behalf because I use the term proper guitar playing, which apparently is completely objective, so I'm told.
Yeah, there's no proper way. It's just music. It's fun.
Pretty much. Again, I don't want to poop on people who are enjoying music in any way.
So
we'll get to that later, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, we'll bring it back in. Do you gig yourself then? I don't know if I already asked that.
Very, very occasionally. I used to go to a lot of blues jams, which would just kind of you'd get given the key of a song and like a vague feel, and you'd go there. No, I've not gigged for a very long time. The last gig I did, I think, was at the Waterfront in Norwich. I must have done stuff since then. See, I played a couple of places in Norwich when I was at college, and then I think I've mostly just been doing the jam scene. I'd love to find a band and start gigging, but especially because a lot of what I studied at college was stagecraft, is knowing how to be on a stage. Oh, okay. But it's possibly because I don't have that outlet of doing it myself that I've started doing a lot of these YouTube videos. It's a bit annoying. I can't quite practice what I preach, but oh well. Someday soon, yeah. Someday soon. I mean, I get to play a lot with school. It'll usually happen that a GCSE music student's written a piece, and then they haven't accounted for the fact that this piece is really hard and a 16-year-old can't play it. Do you mind playing it? So okay, fine. So I've got half an hour to work out how to play this kid's GCSE composition. Great.
You're able to do that, surely.
About. Yeah. A lot of it's taking account for things because obviously they're young. They don't know how to write for instruments unless they play them. So it's a bit like, well, rather than doing this, could I play this instead? It will change it in this way, and then kind of communicating how that changes. But so I do a reasonable bit of performing with school as well, which is quite cool. So that I get my satisfied in terms of performance in that way, I guess. Yeah, fair enough. We'll talk a bit about teaching then, if that's all right with you. Sure, absolutely. I was thinking actually earlier when you said that you do this thing where you write something new every day. So for the past few months, so I've only been teaching for about 4 months now, I think. Okay. And so since I started, my new thing was to learn a new song of somebody else's every day, because for the past sort of 7 or 8 years I've generally just written my own stuff and learned the intro to things. Gotcha. Yeah. So that's been my thing, like especially like pop songs and stuff, because I don't listen to mainstream radio, so I didn't know. I teach children and I didn't know a lot of the songs that they wanted to learn. So I know the feeling, absolutely. Yeah. So plenty of Ed Sheeran has come up, and oh boy. Shawn Mendes and he's Ed Sheeran actually was at the music college I attended. I don't think we were there at the same time, but yeah, so he went to Access to Music in Norwich as well. So you didn't meet him? I think he must have been giving a guest lecture or something when I was there, so I didn't meet him face to face, but we were in the same room. But I don't think he would have been a student at the time. Okay. That's my really tenuous claim to fame until I get my own. That's quite cool. He's a very hard-working musician. He is actually, yeah. As much as he gets grilled for Game of Thrones appearances, he does put the work in. So he does get grilled for that. I'd love to talk about Game of Thrones, but I don't think that's relevant to my site. We'll just see when that's a whole other podcast. So you teach guitar and bass. Is that face-to-face? Do you do any Skype lessons, or is it? I don't like doing things over Skype because, especially with beginner guitarists, I want to be able to pick up and physically move a student's hand if I have to. Yeah, reach over and correct it. Yeah. I've seen people who are really great at teaching over Skype. I think that's with more advanced students. You can totally just communicate things through words, especially if as a teacher you get good at being able to reiterate things until a student properly understands it. So I think for advanced students it works really well. I think the majority of most guitar students will be beginners. So yeah, I haven't even really bothered to try teaching over Skype. I pretty much teach any skill range. The ones I enjoy, which this is probably normal, are intermediate students but not advanced students, because I love being able to teach something and then watch the penny drop with particular things, like the modes on guitar is a great example of something which when you first look at it, is a really difficult concept, and I think actually people like to mystify the modes a bit and make it appear a bit more hard than it actually is. So the second someone understands it, it just unlocks a universe of opportunities for songwriting and playing guitar. So I love seeing the penny drop, which you don't always with beginning guitarists, because they're just sort of doing the things you tell them to. When they get a bit more advanced, then it's really like, oh, now I completely get how this works. And it's like, yeah, now Joe Satriani's music makes sense to you. You're welcome.
So have you mastered the art of explaining those things then?
I think I'm pretty good at reiterating things and approaching them from different directions until they're understood. I don't think I think that's the skill. I don't think there's like a perfect way of explaining anything, actually. That means everyone will get it. I think you've just got to be able to reiterate and rephrase until they get it. And that's things I remember from school, being taught and not understanding the relevance or the concept at all, and then years later someone just will say it, and all of a sudden, oh, that's what that means, now I understand algebra. Why couldn't they have just said that in the first place?
It's hard though, if you know something really well, it's hard to remember what it was like to not know it.
Totally
and to explain it. So for me, I only started really learning music theory properly in the last 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
And I definitely remember these distinct moments when I discovered things like the caged system and, things, sort of phrases that had been thrown around and I had no idea what they were. And then suddenly seeing a video or having someone just show me it and being like, oh, that's amazing. Like, the way that music works is incredible, actually. Yeah,
it is. It's one of those things where I can actually completely understand how it's taken however many thousand years to get to this point. I think cage system, the modes, and circle of fifths, I think, are these things that are kind of thrown around as being like the saving grace of musicians. You're not a musician unless you fully understand these things, and they're mystified in that kind of way and revered. But actually, when you get them, they're really simple.
That complex,
they're not at all. But it's just getting your head around how it works, I think, is quite hard.
That's it. I can't remember what the website was. I wouldn't want to guess, but they do really good animations about music theory, and they did one about circle of fifths.
Is it 12-tone? Or that could be similar?
Could well be, yeah. Is that sort of a walkthrough animated with a bit of history and then how it relates to...
Possibly not. 12-tone basically is a voiceover and then a sped up footage of a guy drawing things on paper. So he'll sort of animate it live in that kind of way. So possibly a different channel.
Oh, that sounds good. I feel like it's Communica Sound or something like that, but I don't. Okay. I didn't want to guess.
That sounds cool.
You know what it is.
Sure. Yeah.
So how many people do you teach at the moment on a weekly basis?
Weekly basis. So I've got a few kids I'm teaching at school. Some of them are they'll more or less just turn up whenever they need something. I've got 3 regular students currently, which is not very many.
Is that one-on-one?
For one-on-one, yeah. And then I'll get occasionally slightly more advanced students who I can't, in all good conscience, sit them down for an hour every week and take their money when actually that we're just jamming. So I'll they'll get like a refresher session every few months. So it does kind of vary, and it varies with my workload as well. Usually 3 though, so not a huge amount, but enough to keep me thinking, I guess.
Okay, so for anyone that's sort of just now learning to play guitar, how would you help somebody who's having trouble making chords, for example? Because I know it's very easy to get someone to be able to play single note melodies on a couple of strings, but making chord shapes, especially for small children that's sort of 8, 9, 10 years old, seem to find it really, really difficult.
Yeah, totally.
How would you work around that? Like, how would you help them through that?
So I think this is good advice for anything in life, actually. If you're struggling to learn a new thing, is try to integrate the thing you can't yet do with a thing that you can already do. So one I come across, a lot of students I get will have already learned open chords already. So the big one I face a lot is bar chords. And people will often just try and be like, okay, learning bar chords, let's find a song made out of bar chords, jump in, deep end, let's do it. But obviously then it won't sound like music because you can't do bar chords yet. So what I try to do is take a sequence of open chords, which they can already do, and then integrate a single bar chord into that mix, and then you play it really slow. So yeah, it might be a bit tedious playing the open chords you can do already, but then it's a bit more of a challenge when you get to the bar chord. Once that bar chord is fully integrated and you can play it at a reasonable speed, then you swap out another chord for a bar chord, then a third, then a fourth, until you're playing a completely bar chord thing. I'm also sometimes quite arbitrary with what bar chords we add, so it might not diatonically make sense, but it's fine. No one's listening because it's just you and a teacher. And I think sometimes forcing yourself to play things that might not sound perfect or might not make sense from a theory point of view can be quite fun, because then your ear works out what not to do, basically. If it's something like open chords, so like a complete beginner, just simplifying the chords. So rather than playing all 3 fingers or 4 fingers of an open G major chord, you just start off by playing the deepest 3 notes. So in that example, you're playing a 3rd fret on the E string, 2nd fret on the A string, and then an open D string. And then just try and work out how to play those chords using 1 finger or 2 finger. Once you can do that at a reasonable speed, then start adding extra fingers. I think generally I say the important thing is to make it sound like music as quickly as possible, because if you're a little kid and you're trying to play guitar but you're just sort of hitting strings and it sounds more like a poorly tuned percussion instrument than anything else, that's not going to sound like music. You're not going to get excited about it. So the quicker it actually starts to sound like chords and notes and a pattern that makes sense, I think the better, especially with complete beginners.
Yeah, you've got to get the enthusiasm there, haven't you? So.
Totally.
I'm glad you said that, because that's something that I've been doing as well. We call them cheat chords.
I like it,
Yeah, so like the C chord, one of the girls I work with, she'll just do it with, first finger, 1st fret on the B string. Perfect, and we just play those couple of strings there.
Yeah.
And that's our cheat.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Especially with... using as many open strings as you can. Again, it makes it sound more like music, because there's kind of more notes there, and it sounds a little brighter, because it's especially on acoustic guitar, that's the strings that you're supposed to be playing as open as possible, just because that's what resonates the brightest, I guess. Just simplify it. Simplify stuff in terms of speed as well, whatever it is you're trying to do. This is a complete contradiction to what I just said, but slow something down until it's not even musical, but then only speed up once you can do it at that speed. That, I think, more is a problem with more intermediate guitarists who are trying to do fast scale runs or whatever. You've got to make sure... Exactly. You've just got to make it, just properly slow it down and only bring it up once you can play that at the right speed and you're holding the notes for the complete duration. Another one I've faced is changing the position you hold your guitar at. A lot of it is either because students spend their time sitting down, so when they stand up with their guitar, they don't know what they're doing. So practice standing up as often as you can. Okay. And often adjusting your strap height. Cool kids will have it really low because they've seen Slash do it. But then wonder why they can't play bar chords. It's because Slash doesn't play bar chords. So adjusting strap height and just trying to take account for your body. No one can tell you how to wear a strap because no one has the same body as you, so it's kind of up to you and your comfort to work that out. Do you, if you're going over some new songs, do you worry about sort of strumming patterns and things? Do you try to get them to completely imitate whatever song it is that you're doing, or do you just encourage kind of freestyling, I guess? Varies from student to student. So if I'm teaching someone who I know has an interest in writing their own stuff, I won't necessarily worry about the strumming pattern. I'll maybe do it once or twice to make sure they can follow instructions.
Yeah.
But then then we'll go into like the theory and say, okay, the reason we chose this chord or the reason the composer chose this chord for this section is because it complements the song in this way. And then it goes into this section. So we'll kind of try and break it down in terms of theory if I know they want to be a songwriter. If it's someone that just is a hobbyist, which is fine, by the way, if someone just wants to play for their own enjoyment, then I think they usually will want to play it as precisely to the original as possible. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about the beat it solo. Is just a case of working out if they literally can't play a specific chord or they can't strum a certain way, find a way to cheat it, and either we'll get back to doing it here's that word again, the proper way, or we'll just keep it that way, and that will be your unique interpretation of that song.
Your special version. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Your what's the technical word? Arrangement of that song.
That's it. Awesome. So the very first thing that I saw of yours was the video that you did about music learning apps.
Oh boy.
So, which I think, is that your most viewed video? Or one of, at least.
It's my most viewed video, which is from my weekly upload schedule. So I've got a few gear reviews. I'm endorsed by this guitar company, Court, who I really like, so I do reviews of their gear whenever I get a hands on a new instrument from them.
Okay.
Occasionally funky pedals or whatever I come across. Those will get a similar number of views to
what were they
this
called?
app
Sorry,
video.
is that COURT?
CORT. So product reviews get a lot because people want to know where to spend their money. Basically, they want to make sure that what they're getting is right. So those will get 10, 20, 30,000 within a year. My most viewed video is, are you familiar with Lil Wayne, the rapper?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Lil Wayne thinks he can play guitar. Lil Wayne can't play guitar.
I think that's a common theme with rappers these days.
It is, isn't it?
I'll just hold a guitar while I rap. That will add.
Pretty much. The problem is, because he's quite well known, he can do what he thinks playing a guitar is to thousands of people. So, have you seen the Shreds parody videos? So it's like Eddie Van Halen or Slash, but the playing's all messed up and sounds awful.
No,
have you seen those?
I don't think so.
They're hilarious. They're a great waste of time. So it's just really, really well known, really well respected musicians, but it sounds naff and awful, and it's hilarious because the crowd are still cheering and the band are still going for it. It just sounds pants.
Is it real?
So,
it's not.
No.
Oh, it's a warped.
It's overdubbed.
Right.
So what? That's okay. So what I did was the opposite of that. So I took a video where Lil Wayne isn't. Shall I bother being nice? He's not doing very well.
You be yourself.
But thank you. He's not doing very well with guitar. And I don't think you can even really hear what he's doing because it's mixed. So it's not mixed poorly. I think the sound tech has just worked out that no one needs to hear what he's trying to do. So I've synced up my version of what he could have done. So I've overdubbed myself playing over Lil Wayne not playing very well.
Oh, that was nice of you.
Thank you. I think so. I've not been offered any deals by Lil Wayne yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, after this,
maybe.
We'll tag
so
him.
that video, I think, recently, it's something. It must be very nearly 40,000 views, but it's got more than the video I ripped off to make my video, if that makes sense. It's got more than the original.
What's it called?
Lil Wayne Actually Shreds.
Lil Wayne Actually Shreds.
Awesome. Yeah, so that recently got more views than the original, which was very cool. So that is my most viewed video.
Okay.
This video about learning apps and learning games, I'm saying is my most viewed video in terms of my regular new upload schedule. So it's still a great
type,
absolutely.
Okay.
So it's still a really cool milestone.
Okay, cool. So I mean, it was really interesting to watch, and I'd only just learned about Musician myself, because they do have adverts. Their adverts are quite, I think you use the word aggressive.
They're doing all of my marketing for me. It's amazing.
Right.
I haven't had to tell anyone about this video. People are finding
No, this
it.
was it. I was searching for Musician and you came up. So,
yep.
Yeah,
third video when you search Musician.
That's cool. They've definitely got their marketing down.
I was about to ask if we can name the apps, but we're sort of we're into it now,
late.
aren't we? So
there are other learning apps are available.
Yeah, I also say that they're terrible as well, though. That's the thing. My whole thing with YouTube is arguments aren't particularly well balanced, and if you've looked at any comment section on a YouTube video, you know that that's a completely pointless battle to even try and start. But there aren't many videos criticizing this kind of software or pointing out potential flaws, so that's why I made, well, that was one of the reasons I made it, but that's the reason I'm kind of a bit brutal about it.
So have you downloaded a few of these and had a play around with them? And
I haven't, which is pretty bad of me, but the reason I haven't is because I'm not a beginner guitarist. If someone's trying to teach me something but they phrase it poorly, I'll probably be able to work out what they're getting at. I don't have the perspective of someone who has only been playing less than a year, so I'm not going to be able to get their experience of it. The only evidence I have, the evidence I have to back up my arguments is the number of students that have come to me who I have one-on-one lessons with, some of them still, saying that they're using whatever software and they've hit a wall and can't progress. And that's down to how these applications and games work. They can't possibly score you. Sorry, the only thing they can score you on is whether or not it's detected the right note.
Purely accuracy.
Purely down to whether or not it's heard it. So, I mean, you could think about, okay, well, what if a guitarist's guitar is out of tune, but they happen to hit the right note because they've played the wrong fret? Are they going to play that wrong fret the next time they play it, but their guitar's in tune, and then it'll sound terrible?
Yeah.
But the app won't know that because it's heard the right pitch. And obviously, like if you're a guitar teacher, you can see, oh, that shouldn't have sounded like that. What's going on? Oh, you didn't actually tune. Okay, great. That's what we need to do.
I didn't think that, to be honest, because I guess it depends on the quality of your phone as well, then, that you're using in the mic on your phone. And
yeah, totally. I heard one of the comments left was saying that, I think, was it Musician or was it Rocksmith? I can't remember. One of them can't detect a bass guitar when it's being played with a plectrum, which is...
That's mental.
Completely mental, right? How that's a huge flaw. And like, I don't want to get into the whole proper bass playing, but like, pick is valid, slap is valid, finger style is valid. Like, you can't...
Why would it not be able to pick that up?
The only thing I can think is perhaps to do with the attack it's expecting. So like, it's not expecting the very first fraction of the sound it detects to be quite a harsh, almost percussive sound. Like when you pick a guitar, there's a very solid kind of percussion to it, and then it turns into a pitch very quickly, where if you play fingerstyle, there's no real attack to it, if that makes sense. That's the only thing that occurs to me. But like, why would that be a problem if it's not a problem with guitar? Unless it literally just can't handle bass frequencies, which is an even stupider problem. Yeah, I don't know. That's clearly something that should be fixed.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps they'll work on an update.
Yeah.
I don't know. Usually they find out about stuff like this, I think, now with social media, if there's something wrong with what you're doing or your company.
I hope so. Yes. So the gist of the video is that music or teaching apps aren't particularly good. I have no problem with tuning apps. I think I'm actually pretty impressed by some tuning apps. If anyone's interested, I use the official Fender one on my non-Fender guitar. I don't know if that's a problem.
I think Liam Taylor might have a problem with that.
Yeah, could be. That's fine. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Oh, okay.
That's what the comment section tell me anyway.
Oh gosh, yeah, that must be quite harsh.
It's in fairness with the comments and stuff. I perhaps should have prefaced it by saying that whatever an individual enjoys doing is great. If they love playing with rocksmith, musician, guitar tricks, whatever, that's fine. It's
that's
it's
the only
not down
thing.
to me.
Yeah, that was all that I would sort of think to say, is that anything that gets people playing music and they're enjoying it and it's therapeutic for them or whatever. Then
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And you mentioned that it is basically a game, and I've used it this week just to give it a try, and it is quite a fun game essentially.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. The problem with it being a game is that if you think about how games are scored, it's all about getting to the last level and finishing the last level, and sometimes it's about doing that as fast as you can. So because it is a game, I'm afraid, you're only going to complete it when you do the thing as complete, with as many notes, with as fast as possible as you're being told to. Speed doesn't equal good sound.
No.
Sure, there's a bit of crossover there, especially if you're Yngwie Malmsteen or Steve Vai or whoever, but if you're playing something fast, you're not necessarily playing it good. So I've had students who I've had to backtrack with who, sure, they can play fast, but they're not holding notes for their full duration, or notes are overlapping and it just sounds kind of sloppy and unpleasant. I've had others... Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say perhaps a little bit soulless as well. If you're just
completely
kind of mathematically.
Yeah, if you take the identical phrases and have someone who's been playing 2 years and someone who's a professional musician, if they play the identical thing, you can totally tell which is which, and it's all down to I call them micro articulations. So it's not even a case of vibrato, bending, slide, that kind of thing, but it's a case of, the intonation is ever so slightly out here, maybe I just need to grip a little bit harder on, that's the right pitch. Just little things like that after years and years of playing you don't even consider as a thing you do, but are, and that's how you can tell the difference, I think, between a pro and a beginner. So trying to backtrack with students is really frustrating as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are some of the worst habits that you think people get from? I mean, are there people that have used purely learning apps and for years and years? Do you know of anyone that's, I guess, completed the game essentially?
I don't. A lot of the comments on this video have said, like, I'm level 9, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what level 9 is, I don't care. If you're using the I think I did a comment response, because of course I did, and it's like, if I'm saying that something isn't very good and you're saying that you're an expert in that thing, that means nothing to me. So the only people I've known who've used it for a very long time have either commented on this video and said it's the most amazing thing ever. The only people I know in person are the students that have come to me and said, I've been using this for ages, why do I suck? And you've kind of got to go with the experiences you have with people face to face, because that's the only thing you can actually properly experience, I guess, if that makes sense. So no, I don't know if anyone's completed the game. I don't know what the end game is. Is it a record deal? That'd be cool.
I should think so, yeah. Sort of Prince status or something like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, so when you're pretending to chill out in the evenings, do you consume sort of other YouTubers? Do you consume any teachers online just to check it out or to get inspired by it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, in terms of relaxing, I try to watch music stuff where possible. So I like the Game Grumps gaming channel. I used to watch a lot of filmmaking stuff. The channels Film Riot and Indie Mogul I used to use a lot, and they sort of helped me know how to use a DSLR camera. And just kind of make stuff for YouTube audience.
So you do think there's value in learning from
completely. I think
video lessons?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with something like filmmaking, it's easy to show online because it's a visual medium, isn't it? With music, if it's an audio medium, then YouTube isn't the best place to do that, but because they sort of degrade audio quality, I guess. So all these, I try not to use production tutorials on YouTube, even though I make some myself, because when they talk about especially really high-end, really expensive software, they'll try and convince you that this thing sounds amazing. It's like, yeah, but you're on YouTube, I can't hear the difference. I'm listening with my huge KRK studio grade speakers on YouTube and I can't hear the difference, so I'm not going to spend £10,000 on your thing because I can't hear the difference on YouTube. If you come to my house with your software, I might be able to. Whereas stuff like filmmaking, the medium is all about image, so you can use it, and yeah, there's quality reduction, but some of it's more about visual storytelling and stuff, which I've kind of used in the comedy sketches I create. There are a few music specific channels I watch. I mentioned 12 Tone earlier. So the guy does sort of illustrates pen and paper things he's talking about. So him and Adam Neely, Adam N-E-E-L-E-Y, I think. He's a jazz bassist in New York, and him and 12 Tone talk about really sort of intricate music theory stuff, but they do it in a really accessible kind of way. And sometimes they talk about really absurd stuff, quite abstract kind of musical concept, but sort of stuff that you could, even if you don't end up using it yourself, it's cool to know that there's this weird stuff that exists. I used to watch a lot of Rob Chapman. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've got a friend called Rob Chapman, but I don't imagine it's the same person.
Is he in a band called Dorje?
I don't think so, no.
I imagine you would know if it was him.
Okay, no.
So he's quite interesting, but I find Rob Chapman more interesting because of the way his band Dorje have been successful, I think widely off the back of his YouTube career. So he was a YouTube guitar instructor for a while, and then he mentioned that he had a band because he was quite successful. His band became quite successful, and because their fan base isn't localized, it means that they can tour the UK and just have an instantly successful tour because they've done stuff through this global medium of YouTube. So that's really that's interesting. I recently found the internet. Yeah, exactly. I recently found a chap called Tantacruel, Tantacrul. That might be a Pokemon pun, I'm not sure. He does quite similar videos to me, but it's about music composition in general. I think he's a singer by trade. He's completely savage about things he doesn't like, so I feel a real connection with him in that way. Yeah. He recently did a video about how to do a bad cover of Hallelujah, which was,
in case you didn't know how to do
in case you didn't know how, he's just talking about how the beauty of that song is how minimal it is, especially the original by Leonard Cohen was kind of a full ensemble, but then the well-known version by Buckley is really as minimal as you can get and still be music. So when people try to take this really beautiful, highly emotive song, but then add bells and whistles and just go completely over the top, that kind of ruins it. So that's a really good video, how to do a bad cover of Hallelujah.
Sounds good. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's worth a watch.
It's actually a song that literally describes how to write a song.
I love that kind of meta in in music. Yeah.
So what would you say, I guess this could apply to your filmmaking or just in progressing I mean, do you still find yourself learning new things on the guitar?
Yeah, I used to try and find like as much time as possible to learn new things and focus on developing skills, but because I'm writing so much and playing so much, I find that I'm playing so much I no longer have time to learn new things, if that makes sense. Okay. Would you perhaps witness some new music and be like, oh, I wish, I want to know how to... I do that quite a lot with kind of funky jazz stuff. Okay. I recently got into this band called Vulfpeck, Vulfpeck. They're kind of a jam band. I think they'll write a song, but then they'll record it all in one go. live and then stick that up on YouTube. They've got something like, I think maybe 100 videos of just them playing this amazing music,
just unedited kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's quite a lo-fi aspect as well. I mean, there's a little bit of mixing and mastering that goes on, obviously, but like a sound that happens in the room is in the recording. So if a guy sneezes, that's in the song now.
Yeah.
They're really fun. So kind of listening to them and just listening to different styles of music. I don't listen to an awful lot of rock music whilst still kind of calling myself a rock musician. Basically because working with rock bands, I got a bit sick of the whole trying to live up to this rock and roll lifestyle thing when actually your music is bad and you should feel bad.
So working with rock musicians kind of sucked the fun out of it for you,
which I really hate, but yeah. So there's something about Whitesnake that I really enjoy, though. So I think anything's going to put me off Whitesnake. There's another rock band, Dead Daisies, whose guitarist Doug Aldrich is just ridiculous next level. So that's what a single guitarist that I will go back to and try to like steal his technique, basically. Yeah. Even though I tell people to not steal people's techniques, I don't care. I want to play like him. But in terms of keeping things interesting, trying to just fit guitar into genres that don't necessitate it. So jazz doesn't really need guitar, hip hop doesn't need guitar, electronic music, cinematic music doesn't need guitar, but then if you can make it work, you can get something really cool. And that's the kind of style of music I write myself. I call it instrumental rock, but I use lots of electronic elements, so either electronic percussion or synthesizers, big orchestras as well, lots of effects, lots of glitchy stuff and sound design. So that's kind of what I enjoy doing. So trying to find ways...
fusing genres and...
Completely, yeah. So that material is released under the name Ronnie Diz. So Ronnie, Ronnie Diz. I've got a few different tracks online. As I said earlier, I don't finish songs quite as much as I'd like to, but yeah, when stuff comes out with that, and it's like a big sound. Yeah, trying to sort of cross genres a little bit. So in terms of using guitar in that, trying to convince myself that it's okay to actually play quite simple stuff, to just kind of blend into the background and sort of be appropriate to the music that's being played, and then how to go from that into something that's really kind of cutting through. But then, do I want to cut through in terms of my sound or the effects I'm using, or do I want to cut through in terms of the technique I'm using?
So would you sit there thinking about that, or would you just try something and then move on if it didn't work?
I would probably... What I usually do is stick the music as is without guitar on a loop for about an hour while I do household chores, and just listen to it that way till it becomes just kind of, I don't even hear it anymore. And then sort of while I'm doing other stuff, household chores includes scripting and video editing, by the way.
I know what you mean.
Of course it does.
Although I did sort of picture you hoovering and being like, yeah, that sounds good.
I couldn't... Oh, I'll tell you about that project in a second, actually. So I'll kind of just be thinking about the music whilst trying to focus on something else. So then when I actually sit down about it, I will have subconsciously been thinking, what if I use a bending technique, but I start it in this place, so it's like having a pre-bend, or just sort of trying to tweak articulations and things I can do quite well, but then tweak them in a way that makes them a bit harder to do, and hopefully makes it a bit more interesting.
I know what you mean, because I do the same thing. If I've recorded something that's kind of half finished, I'll be like, right, I'll turn it into MP3, let's go and listen to it, listen to it in the car, I'll listen to it through my headphones, I'll go for a run and listen to it. And, while you're thinking about other stuff, you definitely get new ideas, I think.
Double-edged sword, though, because you can very quickly become bored with your own work and then think it's not worthy of being released. So,
definitely, you can overdo it.
It is a bit hard to strike the balance, but I think you've just got to bear in mind that thing you're sick of, it will be a new experience to someone else.
Yeah, it's the creative roller coaster.
Absolutely. I love it.
So what would you say have been your greatest challenges in teaching?
In teaching patience for sure. When I started teaching, I guess I couldn't have imagined how long it would take a person to get a single chord under their fingers. You've got to be really patient, and you've got to, as I said earlier, be able to reiterate points in a whole variety of ways. And
can you remember? Sorry,
sure, go on.
I was going to say, can you remember not being able to play chords yourself?
Not well. I can remember the first chord book I've got. I've probably still got it somewhere. No, I don't really remember a point. I as far as I know, I picked up the book and was like, oh, so it's this chord, and then how do I go to this next chord? But I think I had quite a because I've been playing piano a little bit.
And I've got a bit more naturally.
I guess I knew when it sounded bad from that, but I think I've got quite a logical mindset. So if I'll be able to problem solve musical things quite easily. So I was like, okay, I'm having trouble going from this chord to this chord, so what fingers has that got in common? What do I not need to move? Oh, that's a bit easier now. So
that must make quite a difference.
Yeah, I realise that I've got the edge on people in that way, but so trying to explain things that were really apparent to me but might not be apparent to someone else, and that's still stuff that I can do now, which obviously a beginner guitarist can't do, but you've got to work out how to get to that point, and why it is they can't do what you can do. And I'm really sorry, I've just realised it's raining, so you might be able to hear that in the background.
I heard it sounded like a fighter plane flew over you earlier.
Yeah, we get those as well. So that's not in your own house, whoever's listening. Don't worry.
I can't hear the rain. We should be all right.
Okay, wicked.
That's really, I think that you're quite lucky, I guess, in that respect, because we didn't have a music teacher at high school, so I never knew anything about music until I wanted to, at which point I was probably 17, 18, I think, and then you're going in at the deep end and trying to work it out, and it is very frustrating.
I mean, I was much the same, actually. Like my parents tried to get me to play violin when I was really small, about 5, which obviously I couldn't do because I was 5. But then we didn't have traditional music lessons in school, or if we did, it was kind of singing hymns, so it wasn't music to me in that way. So, and again in secondary school, other places call it a high school, don't they? In secondary school,
I shouldn't. That's quite American of me, wasn't it?
I think it's weird because I went to. Basically, I went to college in Norfolk, and they say high school. And I was like, what the hell is a high school?
Oh, okay.
They'd never heard the term secondary school, so secondary school, high school, whatever.
Yeah. The big one.
The big one. I think we had a music teacher for the first year, but then they just disappeared and they weren't really replaced.
Yeah,
so
that's what happened at our school as well. I wonder where they all go.
That could just be a running theme with music teachers. I don't know. So that was weird. So I never really got into music in that way. It was only a few years into school that I was sort of told, okay, let's do piano lessons by my parents, which I sort of did begrudgingly because I just enjoyed making stupid sounds in my bedroom with my tiny keyboard.
So were your parents musical?
Yeah, my dad and my brother are really musical. My dad used to play bass and he plays fiddle. My brother used to play fiddle. I think he's recently picked up a bouzouki, because of course he has. Yeah, so I didn't really have the school background, but yeah, my parents kind of got me to learn piano, so that was quite that was helpful when it came around to learning guitar as well. Just I think when it comes to teaching, or whether it's teaching yourself or whether it's teaching other people, just be logical about stepping stones and make things simple and work out. Don't worry about the destination so much as working out how to get there, because you're not going to be able to get there if you can't get there, which sounds really obvious when I phrase it like that, but
no, it's good advice.
Putting that into practice is not the easiest thing. Especially when you take into account a individual student's needs with guitar and piano, like different sized hands. My hands are massive, too big even. So
Does that come with being tall, though, perhaps?
Oh, probably. So certain chords are really easy for me to play. Other chords are a little harder, but then I find ways to adapt them. But then a beginner guitarist won't necessarily know that, okay, this book told you to use this finger for this thing, but actually because your hand's shaped this way, or you've got this wrist injury, try doing it this way. And that again goes back to applications. They won't take into account the size of your hands or the shape of your body, so it all comes down to...
Are you one of those people that will play like an A chord just with the one finger?
I can do it because I like getting that high E string out because it's a little brighter. I can't really do that if I bar it with the one finger. What I actually do, secret answer C, is I'll play the open A string. I'll fret the second fret of D and G with my first finger, and then with my pinky I'll play the 5th fret on the B and high E strings.
That's quite a stretch.
It's quite a stretch, but pretty comfortable for me. That's how big my hands are. So what you have there is a stacked power chord. So it's a power chord on top of a power chord, and it's super bright. You don't get the a major or minor third, but you get a really bright power chord. So with rock music, that's a really pleasant chord to play with any level of distortion. You just don't want to use minor notes, basic minor or major notes. You just want to stick simple chords, but then if you can stack power chords on top of each other, you get that kind of brightness you might get from having a third, but without the distracting complexity of being told to feel things by music. And then I can be really lazy, and because there's actually an E in that chord, I can play the open low E string as well and just say, oh, it's an inverted 5th, it's fine. And that's how you play the biggest chord there is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of music promotion, which I know you said you've got a bit of background in that.
Yeah.
Obviously there are tons and tons and tons of bands and artists now putting out music. It seems like more than ever before, but I don't know if that's just that, you know, Twitter is a thing now and SoundCloud is a thing now.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to anyone that's kind of wanting to reach a wider audience, whether it's a band or an artist?
Sure.
In terms of utilising social media, like what do you think works and what absolutely doesn't work?
In terms of social media, I think you've got to be regular and you've got to be interesting. I'm a big fan of this concept called band jobs. And this is something we talk about on my music business channel, Stabbed Panda Music, a series called Pro Tips for Independent Bands, which is exactly that. So the idea with band jobs is that everyone in a band will play an instrument or sing. That's so obvious I shouldn't have said it. You'll usually have a chief songwriter or lyric writer as well, and that can be someone's band job. So that's the thing that they do that, aside from playing an instrument, is how they make themselves worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's necessary to the process. You've basically got to consider things like promotion, event management, booking, vlogging, everything. It has got to be taken as seriously as songwriting. So you could give someone the band job of finding gigs. Another guy could be the graphic artist or photographer, just being responsible for your visual representation online. Someone else could be a vlogger on behalf of the band, so uploading content to YouTube or Facebook or Twitter really regularly that is about the band, but not necessarily about the music you're making. So these are all jobs that you will have to do at some point. It's just a case of whether you get on it early and do it yourselves, or you hire in someone to do it on your behalf. And if you hire in someone, that's less money you make. Yeah. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the band job idea. And I think skills like photography, Photoshop, filmmaking are all kind of if you're a creative enough person to be able to play bass guitar, I think you'll be a creative enough person to work out how Photoshop works.
Yeah, just branch out.
Exactly. And if it all goes south, you can get a job doing Photoshop, I guess.
There you go, yeah.
So just doing more than playing your instrument, but kind of it's fair enough to, as an individual, not be able to do everything, but as a collective, as a band, you totally can. In terms of gigging, it sounds really cheesy, but you've just got to do it because you love it. The chances of hitting any kind of major success with an original music band are so slim. You've got to stick at it and churn out original content, often for zero money, for a very long time. So you absolutely have to enjoy doing it. Otherwise, you're gonna not enjoy it, and you're gonna not want to do it. And of course, it's not going to go anywhere, because you're not doing stuff as often as you need to.
I think you can tell when a band or an artist is enjoying it, and it makes it
totally
so much more enjoyable for you, witnessing it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've got to enjoy being on a stage and performing as well, or just be really good at faking it. Like the first couple of gigs I played, I hated it, really couldn't bear it. Just
Why
because
was that?
I'm just a really nervous person. Yeah. So I made myself do it because one of the things I was good at studying is, I realise this is weird to hear, but the theory of stagecraft, so the theory behind what to do when you're on a stage, because I was quite good at working out, oh, this guitarist is doing this, so he's moving in this way, which allows him to do this, and he's interacting with this person at this moment in the song. So I'd literally make myself, okay, it's a chorus. Now you look at the drummer for a bit. Now it's the bridge. You can turn around and not face the audience for a few bars. That's okay, because you're moving. Now it's the second song, so you're going to walk over to the other side of the stage. That's how to fake enjoying being on a stage. Just make yourself move, make it part of the performance.
No, it's good. It makes sense to pay attention to other people that are doing it well.
Totally, yeah.
That's thinking, I guess. So would you advise, like, treating it, if you want to build your music career up a little bit from where it is, treating it as you would any other business, essentially?
Yeah, pretty much. You can even go so far as to study traditional business marketing, seeing how the big companies are using social media. Often I'd advise, look at how big companies are using social media, and then don't do that, because there's no one in that company under the age of 20, so they won't get it. I'm not saying that you need to work out how teenagers are using Instagram, but they have the followers, so yeah, maybe.
Doesn't hurt to...
Exactly.
Yeah,
you've got to treat it as a job, so yeah, if you can get part-time... There's another plane, sorry about that. So if you can get part-time work doing whatever, I mean, I did the thing where I worked in a supermarket and stacking freezers for a few days a week to allow me to do music. If you can get a job that's adjacent to music, that's amazing, but like, you don't necessarily have to. And then if that part-time work then gives you more of a... Creative people are terrible at schedules, so if you know that Monday, Wednesday, Friday you're going to be stacking shelves, then that gives you Tuesday and a Thursday, which are going to be your structured making music days. And then just treat it the same as your day job. Just do the tasks that you've got to do, create X amounts of videos. YouTube's great at the moment because you can create a load of videos but then set them to release dates. So for example, I'm not going to be in the country next week, but I still have a video ready to go on Friday at my normal launch time.
So just keep on top of it.
Just absolutely keep as far ahead of it as you possibly can. You probably know this from creating podcasts as well. You got to try and get ahead of yourself so that you can actually relax and think a bit more long term. So yeah, absolutely treat it like a business. A business that you like, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, the passion's got to be there, hasn't it? Otherwise, it's like
completely.
You said, it's just gonna fizzle out. Otherwise.
It's just going to become a chore. Completely.
So what are your hopes personally for the next few years? Have you got any sort of... I know you keep on form in terms of thinking of new ventures and new projects and stuff. Have you got?
Yeah, I've got a couple things going on that I'm quite happy to plug. I'm trying to get together a massive collaboration between a variety of musicians and music professionals. The idea is that I want to get about 300 people each submitting a 6-second video with a single piece of advice about music creation, songwriting, instrumental tips, lifestyle, business, whatever. Anything. Thank you. Anything that you think you have a unique insight into, and then these 6-second videos are going to be compiled into one. It's about 40-minute video probably, and I'm going to sort of back that with as much sort of marketing as I possibly can and get it out there. So if sorry, go on.
Will you be inviting people to do that, or are you just going to open the door?
It's completely open at the moment. I've sort of preempted this by approaching like some specific bands. There's a great band, they're English but they work in France, called Gadzooks. They're amazing, so I got them, and I think they were working at a festival, I think, and their guitarist just walked around with a camera just prodding his bandmates to say something interesting, so I've got a big file from them to go through. Awesome. So yeah, I'm taking submissions from literally anyone who has a unique insight into something very specific. Obviously try to get a teacher is great advice, practice loads is great advice, but that's going to come up so many times. So anything unique, anything quirky, if you can present it in a quirky way, that's brilliant. So if you have a 6-second video, please remember, if you're using your camera phone, to film horizontally, otherwise you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. You can email it straight over to collabsubmissions@stabbedpanda.com, or if you want a bit more info, the URL is stabbedpanda.com/WP/YouTube collab, all one word. So that.
And okay, is this pretty soon that you're going to be sort of putting this together?
I've been getting it together for a few months. It's going to take me years to do. I've not put a deadline on it, although once I sort of approach the 200-300 mark, I probably will say cut off is here. I'm kind of just like dipping my feet in the water to see what the response is like. But I think it could be really cool. I think because if we get 300 people involved and each of those 300 people shares it to however many people they know, then your opinion has just got shit. I can't even do the maths on how many people that would be, but it's potentially a really huge platform. So that's something that's sort of going on in the background at the moment. This last week I've been working on a project in Ipswich called Inflated Inspirations. So there's an arts platform I do a lot of work with called Pop My Mind, who I'd really suggest looking at. They've put together this massive installation created out of balloons. So it's like a forest where the canopy is entirely balloons, and the trees are made of balloons, and there's like balloon squirrels.
I saw something about this week.
Yeah.
They're already putting stuff out?
Yeah, so I think it's the week that we're recording this that it's happening, and then it gets torn down, unfortunately. Was it Monday early August anyway. So it probably won't still be out, but there's a 360 Google tour you can do to take a look around. What I've been doing is I've been asked to record samples of the installation and turn it into a musical piece. Which at first I was a bit like, okay, so it's going to be a lot of balloons popping, brilliant. But actually the sound, because these are professional balloon artists who are putting this together, and there's loads of them. They have these motorized balloon inflations where you just pop a balloon on top and then it's inflated immediately, and the sound those machines make is incredible. It sounds it sounds a lot like a kind of dubstep bass. So I was like, okay, nice. Sample that, turn it into an instrument in Contact, instant bass, brilliant. And then kind of the noises of a massive bag of balloon being dropped is quite satisfying. Balloons accidentally deflating is a nice sound. So I've kind of put together this cacophonous, starts off as a soundscape and then turns into this kind of electronic percussive thing.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
you got a lot of squeaking in there then as well. The sort of,
not quite as much, not as much squeaking as you might expect, but yeah, there's a bit. So yeah, the video I'm putting out, well, the week that we're recording, so it'll probably be out already. The video that's going on my channel this week is I think it's a half-hour video basically on how I'm changing these sounds and how I'm manipulating them. And it's quite good if you're interested in sound design or how to use Cubase or how to use found sounds as music. and just how to trigger various effects through MIDI. What instruments do I use? So I use Cubase, excuse me, and Contact and Battery, which are both by Native Instruments. So yeah, that'll probably be out on my YouTube channel. It'll be called something to the effect of Inflated Inspirations. If you want to see a bit more about the company that put together popmymind.com, or if you want to see pictures of the installation itself and the balloon artists and the people behind it, iiart.co.uk. So those are the
awesome.
not everyday projects that are going on at the moment.
I like that. I like your collaboration idea. I think that's anything like that that's sort of going to connect people that are similar minded, and that's going to be something positive that brings everyone together.
That's my hope.
More than
especially with, and I realise I'm not helping the situation, but a lot of the stuff that's on YouTube is quite negative and focuses on bad things and isn't constructive particularly. So I'm hoping to be a little more
make positivity louder.
Totally. That's kind of my hope with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Well, we'll sort of bring it to a close then. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or mention or talk about before we go?
No, I don't think so. I think I've pretty thoroughly covered my life up until this point.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So Stereo Stickman is a website that basically covers music from all kinds of artists and bands from around the world. So it's every kind of genre and everything in between.
Sure.
Is there anyone that you are listening to at the moment when you sort of chill out at the end of the day that you would recommend to our audience, or any new bands or artists that you've been following?
Totally, yeah. So I mentioned Wolfpack earlier. Not that they need any support. I think they're doing quite well. Okay. I met a Venezuelan guitarist a couple of years ago called Felix Martin. Felix Martin plays a 14-string guitar. Wow. So imagine 2 7-string electrics plonked on top of each other.
You'd have to use your whole arm to bar that.
So he does a lot of stuff. It's almost entirely tapping, but because of the range of the instrument, it just means that you can get really more intricate chords out of it. That I got to interview him for Stab Panda, and like the theory behind what he's doing is really logical and really sensible. It's just that no one has a 14-string guitar to try it out on. So if you want to see some impressive technical guitar playing, Felix Martin. A good friend of mine who I write music with, Cy Pettit, has a electronic music project called Mango Flush, and he also plays bass in a band called Subterranean Popular in London. They're kind of lo-fi grungy rock. They're really fun. There's a few singer-songwriters from Cambridge who are really worth checking out. Jake Martin is kind of a DIY punky singer-songwriter, kind of cheeky lyrics, really fun. There's a dude called Oscar Corney as well, Oscar Corney. And I recently went to a gig a friend was hosting, and there was a fantastic guitarist called Matt Hammond. Matt Hammond does kind of intricate tapping style acoustic guitar with some sort of stripped back vocal pads as well, so he's really worth checking out. I think I've just plugged all of my friends.
That's good. Well done. Well, you utilised that moment well, I think.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's so... Yeah, I enjoy being on this side of a microphone occasionally.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, it's great. And I think a lot of what you said is going to be really useful to people that pay attention.
Yeah, I hope so.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Very much. Thank you. You too.
If you'd like to find out more about Liam Taylor, you can visit his blog at liamtaylormusic.wordpress.com. You can find all of his videos on YouTube, youtube.com/liamtaylorguitar. He also runs youtube.com/user/stabbedpanda. To find out more about the huge collaboration project that Liam was talking about, you can visit stabbedpanda.com/wp/YouTube collab. You can download or listen to his podcast, the Conversation Hat podcast, which is hosted on SoundCloud. You can find it on iTunes, you can find it on Stitcher, Podbean, and generally all the places that you get quality podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you listening to the show. Feel free to leave comments if you want to join into the conversation. And I will see you next time.